Hi, thanks so much for joining us. Today we're going to be chatting to Pete Kelsey, who's the owner of VCTO Labs. Pete, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here, Claire.
Well, thank you so much. I know Dan and I really are looking forward to this conversation with you. But first of all, Pete, tell us, who are VCTO Labs and what do you do?
Well, VCTO Labs is actually me, and I make my living using technology to make good stories great, to sort of breathe new life into familiar stories or make new stories even better through the power of 3D virtualization, reality capture, that kind of thing.
Wow. So talk to us a little bit about some of the projects that you're working on.
I have spent the last 10 years or so working in television after spending the bulk of 25 years in the AEC space. So it's been an interesting transition for me. So in my previous life, it was all about civil engineering software, actually. Um, and that introduced me to all the different reality capture technologies, which I got absolutely hooked on through engagement in really high profile projects with that company's biggest customers. And to your question, some of them were, oh my gosh, the very first one was on Easter Island, and then we did the USS Arizona and Pearl Harbor. There's been a lot of them.
Well, Pete, the what I would say is with the what you're doing today, with this extensive here experience, how are you using data to tell stories in new and interesting ways? And what's the power of that?
The power of that is 3D, without a doubt. It brings stories to life. I think more than anything, if there's a secret sauce for me, and I saw this in the early stages of my career and was became hooked on it very early, is that giving data that third dimension really breathes life into it, right? It makes it engaging. It makes it understandable, consumable. I mean, and let's be honest. If the audience, has any history in the gaming thing, which most young people do, there's something about it that's just like, yeah, that it just draws you in, and then it's gonna be interesting. A three-dimensional photorealistic model is certainly more interesting than a spreadsheet, right? So that's just always been sort of a natural place for me to gravitate to because it just changes conversations, right? It's not so much I don't have to work quite as hard to, generate interest or excitement, or the real magic is to earn that emotional investment, right? Whereas I can just show something, especially if it's something that the client or the audience is familiar with, and then you show them a 3D, perfect model of it. The conversation's over. They're like, "This is great! Wow!" I mean, my favorite, what almost always happens is, "Wow, what are we going to do next? What's possible now that we have this model? Now what can we do with it?"
Well, I think what it is you put them in the environment that we naturally dwell in. We don't dwell in pictures and we don't dwell in 2D presentations. We dwell in three-dimensional space. And so what does that emotionally do to the conversation?
I've even seen it, transcend language barriers, right? I've done a lot of work all over the world, and maybe, there's a language barrier, but, you put up a 3D model and it's context. And again, if it's familiar, it's, wow, hey, that's right there, or that's right over there. And it's,
Look at his excitement.
Frankly, from a business point of view, that's just magic, right? Because if you're trying to close business or land a client or trying to differentiate yourself from other people who do this kind of work, that's how you do it. It's like just look at this. I'm going to try not to say much of anything. Just check this out.
Well, the data sells itself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Pete, tell us a little bit about LiDAR and how you work with LiDAR and how that is impacting what you do.
LiDAR is probably my favorite because, well, it's the one I've been working with the longest for sure. Also based on my history in the civil engineering and land surveying geospatial area. The fact that LiDAR tends to provide the most accuracy, precision, not in every case, but still most of the time. Being able to add the GNSS component that it's it's tied to the ground with a survey grade level of precision, right? And I come from a look, if I don't have centimeter grade data, it doesn't matter. Now, oftentimes, um, a lot of customers don't require that, but because that's my history, that's what I gravitate to. No, I want that precision because so many other important value adds to that kind of precision become evident after you have the data. So, wow, LiDAR is accurate. It's depending on what technology you're using and or even before that, I mean how things have evolved. It can be hard to tell the difference between, say, LiDAR and photogrammetry unless you really zoom in tight. Um, so LiDAR has been around for me from the beginning. That's over 25 years. It gives me that precision, and now it's everywhere, right? It's permeated so many things. I mean, not only AEC where I come from, but now television.
Well, and for your company, I mean, you don't do just LiDAR, you have a whole bunch of data modalities. But when we were talking the other day, we were talking about basically that inverse data pyramid. And so, what does LiDAR provide you when you are stacking data on top of it? What's the so what here? There's a big so what here.
There sure is. So a couple of things come to mind. With regard to that inverted pyramid, I always say, look, capture, including LiDAR, is at the base of that inverted pyramid in terms of opportunity and in terms of workflow. So everything typically starts with capture, providing no digital data for the asset already exists. And I think Claire, I mean, why do I do what I do? Because the opportunity down there is vast. It's something like 90 in the high 90s percentile of every physical thing, whether it's, made by us or natural or whatever, has no digital data, right? It doesn't exist. So huge business opportunity for being able to get in this digital twin space. So at the base of that pyramid, if like me, you're the person who says, yeah, that's where I live, right there. The rest of that pyramid is everything. Oh my gosh, it's architecture, engineering, construction, owner operator, operations and maintenance. I mean, literally everything. And then, as I mentioned, what's been fun for me over the last few years is storytelling, specifically television. I mean, everything becomes possible. That inverted pyramid continues to expand um, as quickly as the technology does.
Well, as a fellow storyteller myself, I'm obviously a journalist, so I know the importance of storytelling. But what I'm really fascinated about with regards to you, Pete, and how you are using this is that um, you are really using this technology, this LiDAR, to tell stories in a way that it wasn't possible to tell in the past. And talk to us about the Recon XT. How does that fit into all of this? How does this fit into your digital storytelling, and what impact has this had on the stories that you're able to tell?
Oh, wow. Well, it's GNSS LiDAR. I can fly it. I can mount it to a vehicle. It does color and, oh, by the way, photogrammetry as well, because it's has a really good camera sensor on board. It is, but again, as I said, I mean, if I got to pick one thing, it's GNSS LiDAR. So that ticks so many boxes because I can provide survey grade data with that with the Recon. Um, Gosh, from there, it's compatible with the DJI M300, which arguably is still, I mean, it is the workhorse out there. If we're having an adult conversation, yeah, okay, it's a Chinese drone. And, I tip my hat to all the US manufacturers who are trying to close that gap. Um, but at the moment, that is the workhorse platform out there in my world, people who do what I do. And the Recon integrates right with it, which is just makes it so much easier for me because that's gear that I've been flying for a long time. It's familiar, etc. I mean, beyond that, uh, the software. Oh my gosh, from the flight planning software to LiDAR Mill. Um, I tip my hat to Phoenix Lidar specifically because it's a hardware and software solution, right? It's not, I got to go here for
Right.
my hardware and here for my solution and pray that there aren't any interoperability issues, right? Um, that that's huge as well
Well,
because
now, come on, Pete. Nothing ever works that good, right? I mean, for our viewers here, let's be real. It doesn't ever work that good. But if you're having a problem, what's that experience like for you?
what kind of problem?
Is
It's
that wow?
You need to specify here, Dan.
Yeah, so if you're in the field and let's say you're having an issue, how is that resolved for you? Because things don't always go work right, and
right, right.
how is that for you?
Um,
How's that experience for you?
Yeah, and in particular, how is Phoenix to deal with in that situation? What do they do to have your back and ensure that the problem is quickly resolved?
but that's easy. They are there. They're literally at the other end of the phone. And I've done that more. I've been in that situation more than a few times when the folks there have literally saved my you know what. Because you're in the field and the clock is running, and it could be that I have an owner operator or a civil engineer or even more, the pressure is even higher when you have a film crew and a
Oh yes,
Oh
director and
yes.
the cameras are rolling
yes, I know all
and
about that.
things have to work. You don't, so if things don't work and all of a sudden, my hair's falling out and you're watching me age in real time, I can pick up the phone and say, help, talk me in off this ledge. And Phoenix is great at that. They've bailed me out, like I say, more than a few times. They're also really patient. I mean, because I'm part of the old guard now, right?
No.
I've
You're a baby, Pete.
and I have old habits. And every once in a while I'll be talking to those guys and say something, and you can just tell we've just gone, what? And I'm sure they're going, what is this guy talking about?
But it's really interesting to hear what you're saying because Dan, we've spoken with a lot of very happy Phoenix customers lately, and the one thing that everyone says the same is that the customer service and the support that they provide is second to none, and they always feel that no matter what situation they're having, what technical issue they may be experiencing, Phoenix has their back. They're responsive and they're thorough and just really easy to deal with. But one thing I cannot wait to talk to you about, which is why I'm so excited about this interview, is your work at Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Tell us about that and tell us how LiDAR is also involved with that amazing project.
Yeah, yeah, that's been a fun one. Let's see, this is my fourth year working there with the team. It came about, well, the genesis of it has a direct tie to LiDAR, which was, I have a handful of questions that I ask every client, no matter who they are, what they want to do, if they're interested in capture. And one of the questions that sort of sealed the deal for me at Skinwalker Ranch was, tell me about your existing digital assets for the property. Basically, what do you have? And it's not unusual for, I would say probably 75% of the people I ask that, it's some version of digital what? What are you asking me, right? So, they basically said, we really don't have any. And I said, well, now I know how I can help you. Let's essentially create a digital twin slash virtualize the 512-acre property. Because with that, we then have this single source of truth from a data perspective that we can measure everything against going forward. Not to mention in sort of true GIS fashion, when things happen, we now can give it a location
So a little bit of like
on
change
a,
detection.
oh, of course, change detection. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And that is such a huge part of how I spend what I do for a living, to include at the ranch, which is, so if you have that baseline, right? So fly LiDAR photogrammetry of the whole property, we did that early on. And then all the experiments that have been happening there, typically in one way or another, they either get, you know, added to that. It's basically become a GIS, but it's 3D, it's photorealistic, it's survey grade accurate, and then specific to change detection, because it is a unique place. I mean, wow. The point is, there's a lot of experiments that are going on there all the time. And by the way, 24/7, 365. The science, the research that's going on there is not dependent on just the television series. So it happens all the time. So,
And Pete, just for people who may not have seen the show and may not know about Skinwalker Ranch, what is it that you're investigating there?
so the ranch is known as the most active slash studied paranormal piece of property in the world. And, people are probably, your audience probably just went, what? LiDAR and the paranormal. Well, bear with me. Um,
I'm looking forward to this one. Carry on, Pete. Tell us why these two things are merging together for this particular project.
right. Um, so just for a little more background on it, and this isn't, the federal government was there in the 90s and spent tens of millions of dollars trying to figure out why this why there's so much electronic EMI, electromagnetic interference. What in the world is, and I can tell you stories about GPS going bananas, cell phone batteries draining in seconds. I mean, all kind bright lights, UFOs in the sky,
Wow.
crazy, crazy stuff. And I roll in there the first time, and I'm a full on eye rolling skeptic going, um, I'm just, I'm just here to create a digital twin, to basically survey the property, and then I'm probably out. But then things, weird stuff starts to happen. Like I've lost 3 drones there.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Fortunately, none with any very expensive payloads. Um, anyway, so with that baseline data set, and getting back to change detection, there's a lot of earth moving that goes on out there. There's a lot of construction because new infrastructure is going in there all the time to help with the experiments that are going on. I mean, from classic sort of earth moving road design, new buildings, utilities, classic stuff from my AEC background to get your head around. So I flew a photogrammetry mission there a few years ago and got this spiral of data that I still can't explain. This column of data in the middle of the desert that makes no sense to anyone that I've it's been on the show, doesn't make sense to anyone who's seen it. So in the interest of pursuing the scientific method, I raised my hand and said, look, we've got to go out there again and see if we can repeat it. And
And you use LiDAR
I
for
did
that one,
that.
right?
Yeah, I actually used the Recon for that.
Wow.
And actually, would you like to see the data?
Would we like to see the data?
Oh, we'd love
We'd
to
love
see
to
the
see the data.
data.
Let's see
What
the
sort of
data.
question is that, Pete? Of course.
And we're
Yeah,
going to pull this up on LiDAR Mill?
yeah,
So for these people that don't know, LiDAR Mill is the online cloud processing piece where you can share and collaborate this stuff. Um, and so this allows Pete to do it out in the field and then share it right back in his home office.
here we go. Here
Okay.
we go.
So what are we looking at
Hopefully
here,
you can.
Pete? We can see it. Yeah, we got it. What are we looking at
Yeah,
here?
okay. So, right, if you've never seen this before, this is LiDAR Mill
Wow.
from Phoenix. And this is obviously colorized three-dimensional LiDAR data. Well, maybe that
Wow, look
isn't
at that.
obvious. This
Yes,
is
that's amazing.
colorized three-dimensional survey
Wow, look
grade
at that.
data of Skinwalker Ranch.
And how big is
And
this area,
by the
Pete?
way, this might be, this is probably a 5 to 10 acre piece.
Okay.
You can see a bit of my white truck down there for scale.
Ah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, for those looking at this for the first time, this is the drone's flight path in green up here.
Okay.
So you can see where I took off and land. You
Yeah.
see
That's
this sort of
amazing.
lawnmower pattern of capturing the data. But what I love about this, frankly, is that you can see that this is a browser. So I can share this with not only the team, internally there at the ranch, producers of the show, et cetera, but this is the one single piece of data that I've captured over the last 4 years
Hmm.
that ownership, the powers that be, everybody has said, yeah, make this public. So
Well, and you
to
get to walk through the space together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
yeah,
thing is like you're not just telling somebody and you're not just kind of showing somebody, you're letting them have an experience where they can actually drive through
exactly.
this and say, what is this?
Exactly.
What is that?
A- And and it's a great point, Dan, because something that the owner of the ranch is passionate about is because the research and the subject matter here is so unique. He has insisted, let's open this up to everyone.
Hmm.
So, yeah, to be able to say, come with us. This is as close as we can get to actually inviting people to be on the property because
That's another good point.
people have been hurt here,
Yeah.
people have been hospitalized here. I mean, a lot of weird things happen.
So
Gosh.
So
they
to
get
your
to
point, Dan,
experience this in a safe
yes,
environment and it's timeless.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah,
Whoa.
it's
yep,
truly
Whoa.
incredible. And we could just spend the whole show talking about this because it's fascinating. But Pete, it's Phoenix's 10th anniversary this year. So I just wondered, as a valued customer of theirs, what you'd like to say to them on their big anniversary.
Happy birthday, and I need 10 more years, okay? So I'm a fan of the hardware, a fan of the software. Obviously, I'm using it as part of what I do to make a living. Gosh, yeah, I need 10 more years. That's what I need.
So Grayson and the team, no retiring now. Got at least another 10 years in
No,
you. Ah,
no. And I'll probably be calling you next week on another project.
perfect. Well, I'm sure they'll be delighted to hear from you. But Pete, just as we wrap things up here, if people are interested in the work that you're doing, how can they get a hold of you?
Through my website, VCTOLabs.com is probably the best way. Um, and always happy, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a classic business thing. If you're curious about any of this technology, about how it works, about the Recon XT, about, any of this gear, or you just want to, you know, I don't know, uh, trade war stories, what have you. I'm up for that because it always turns into, a knowledge exchange, which I love, I welcome. So yeah, website's the best way.
And it just doesn't have to be only UFO related too. You do other things, just to put it out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Welcome the UFO stuff, but yeah, 25 years in AEC, so we can go deep into that too.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Pete.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you both.
Hey, as you can see, Pete is a master storyteller. So if you found this good, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. And then we're going to leave a link down below. So if you want to work with Pete and figure out how to do storytelling with your LiDAR data, he'd be happy to do that as well. All right, guys, I'll see you on the next episode.